My father pushed a caregiver form across his kitchen table and tapped the line marked for a nurse's signature while watching my face. "Just sign it, Lena." Cole did the work. 3 days earlier, Dad had told half his church that I barely visited after his stroke. The yellow calendar behind him held 8 months of my handwriting. Every pill refill, every shower, every midnight call was there. Now he wanted my name beneath a lie that would pay my brother for all of it. I picked up the pen, then I asked one question Dad had not prepared for. "Before I tell you what he said, let me take you back to the morning our family started measuring care by who received credit for it. My name is Lena Ward. I was 39 then, and I worked as a home health nurse outside Grand Rapids, Michigan. I knew how to spot neglect. I knew how to build a safe discharge plan. I knew how families hid fear behind jokes and anger. None of that prepared me for my own father. Dad's name was Robert. He had spent 36 years repairing industrial boilers. He trusted steel, pressure gauges, and his own hands. He did not trust doctors. He trusted nurses only when they agreed with him. At home, he kept every tool in a shadow board in the garage. If a wrench was missing, he noticed. If a person was hurting, he preferred not to. My mother, June, had translated him for most of their marriage. "Your father means he is worried," she would say after he criticized a choice. "Your father means he missed you," she would say when he complained that I had stayed too long. She died from ovarian cancer 6 years before his stroke. After that, Dad stopped having anyone soften his words or soften the silence. My younger brother, Cole, had always been easier for Dad to understand. Cole liked engines, football, and quick plans. He had Dad's wide shoulders and his habit of talking over questions. He also had a wife, 2 boys, and a roofing business that rose and fell with the weather. Dad called him a provider. He called me dependable. Those words sounded equal when I was young. They were not. Dependable meant I got the spare key. It meant I knew where Dad kept his insurance cards, and it meant I drove him home after dental work and stocked his freezer before snowstorms. Provider meant Cole received applause for bringing over a pizza. Dad never saw the imbalance. I told myself not to keep score. That changed on a cold Tuesday in February. I was finishing a wound care visit when Cole called. He never called during work. He texted pictures or sent one-word replies. His name on my screen made my stomach tighten. "Dad's on the floor," he said. "Is he awake?" "Kind of. Call 911. He told me not to. Call now." I ended the call and phoned dispatch myself. Then I drove to Dad's house through sleet that clicked against my windshield. The ambulance arrived first. Dad was on the kitchen floor beside an open jar of peanut butter. One side of his mouth sagged. His left hand lay still. He tried to tell the paramedics he had slipped. The words came out thick. I knelt near his good side. "Dad, squeeze my hand." He stared at me. "Please." His right hand closed around 2 of my fingers. His left did not move. At the hospital, the scan confirmed a stroke. The doctor said the clot had been treated quickly, and Cole repeated that phrase all day, "treated quickly." It sounded like proof that the danger was over. It was not. Dad could speak by the next morning, though some words came slowly. His left leg was weak. His balance was poor. He could not safely shower alone. He hated every fact the therapists gave him. "I'm going home Friday," he said. "You're going to inpatient rehab first," I told him. "No, it isn't a vote." He glared at me. "You sound like your mother." That used to be his way of ending an argument. This time it did not. Dad spent 12 days in rehab. I visited before work or after it. Cole came twice. The first time, he brought the boys and took a smiling photo beside Dad's bed. The second time, he dropped off a new television remote and left before physical therapy. I did not resend him yet. Cole had a business. His wife worked mornings at a dental office. Their boys had practices and school projects. I had no children. My schedule looked open from the outside. People often mistake an unclaimed hour for an available one. The discharge meeting happened on a Monday. A therapist, a social worker, Dad, Cole, and I sat around a small table. Dad needed help with bathing, meals, transportation, and medication setup. He also needed someone nearby during transfers until his strength improved. The social worker asked who would do what. Dad looked at Cole. Cole looked at me. I opened my notebook. I said I could handle medications and appointments. I could also cover 3 mornings and 2 evenings. Paid help would have to cover the remaining hours. Dad frowned. Strangers in my house? A trained aide. I have family. The social worker waited. Cole leaned back. I can cover weekends. Both days, I asked. Most weekends. That is not a schedule, he sighed. Fine. Saturdays? Dad nodded as if the problem had been solved. It had not. I arranged a home health aide for weekday mornings. Dad's insurance covered a short period, and I filled a pill organizer. I moved loose rugs. I put a shower chair in the tub. Dad complained about each item, then used it. On his first night home, I made a yellow calendar. It was cheap and oversized, with wide squares for each day. I hung it beside the refrigerator. Blue ink meant appointments. Green meant therapy. Red meant family help. I wrote my initials beside every task I agreed to handle. Dad watched from the table. What is that for? So nobody has to guess. We are not running a hospital. No, we are running Tuesday. He almost smiled. That calendar became the spine of our new routine. I wrote down blood pressure checks, pharmacy pickups, meals, exercises, and rides. The aide initialed her visits. Dad crossed out anything he thought sounded too medical. Cole was supposed to write a red C on Saturdays, and the first Saturday stayed blank. He texted me at noon. A roofing estimate had run long. Could I check on Dad? I was buying groceries. I left my cart near the dairy case and drove over. Dad had eaten crackers for lunch. His morning pills were still in the organizer. Cole got tied up, Dad said. I know. He is trying to keep men working. I know. I made soup. I helped Dad shower. I changed the sheets after he missed the bed with his urinal. Then I wrote my initials in the yellow square. Dad looked away. The next Saturday, Cole came for 40 minutes. He carried in burgers, tightened one cabinet hinge, and left before Dad needed help getting ready for bed or settling in for the night. Dad wrote a large red C on the calendar anyway. I erased it. What are you doing? He asked. Writing what happened. He came. He did not cover the shift. He did what he could. So did I. Dad's mouth tightened. Do not make this a competition. I was tired enough to answer honestly. I'm trying to make it a record. He did not like that word. I could tell. For the next 6 weeks, I covered almost every gap. I arrived before sunrise with coffee. I left clean clothes on the bed. I drove Dad to therapy and listened while he complained that the exercises were childish. At night, I answered calls about dizziness, swelling, and pills he could not remember taking. I knew the work. That made it easier to ask me. It did not make the work light. My supervisor, Lena, noticed the strain before I admitted it. After I arrived late twice, she closed her office door. Lena told me I could not be the nurse for everyone. I could not be Dad's entire care plan either. She gave me a respite care brochure. I folded it into my pocket and never showed Dad. That was my first mistake. I thought protecting his pride would make the hard part temporary, and instead, it taught everyone that I would absorb the gaps. 2 months after the stroke, Dad could walk through the house with a cane. He treated that progress like a legal argument. If he could reach the porch alone, he did not need an aide. If he could pour cereal, he did not need meal help. If he remembered one pill, he remembered all of them, or so he argued. The insurance visits were ending. I arranged a private aide named Patris for 3 mornings each week. Dad agreed until he saw the cost. This is robbery, he said. It is trained care. You do the same things. I also have a job. So does Cole. There it was. My work was flexible because it involved care. Cole's work was real because it produced invoices and shingles. I paid Patris for 1 month. Dad's tax refund came and went into a repair for Cole's truck. Then I covered one more month. Around that time, people at Dad's church started thanking Cole. The first person was a woman named Marcy Bell. She lived across the street from Dad and taught 4th grade before she retired. She stopped me at the mailbox one evening. "Your brother is doing a wonderful job," she said. I thought she meant the roof he had repaired on the church annex. "He tries," I said. Marcy said Dad claimed Cole had put everything on hold to care for him. I looked at her, and her smile faded. She repeated the version Dad had given her. "Cole was there every day. I came only when I could. Come when you can." I had spent the previous night in Dad's recliner because he was afraid to walk to the bathroom alone. My scrubs were in a grocery bag by the door. I had gone straight from his house to work. Marcy saw my face. "I'm sorry," she said. "It is not your fault." Dad was at the kitchen table when I went inside. The yellow calendar hung behind him. My initials filled most of the red spaces, and Cole's appeared 4 times. "Why does Marcy think Cole is your daily caregiver?" Dad kept peeling an orange. "She asked how I was doing." "That was not my question. He helps. So do I. I told her you come by. You told her I come when I can." He separated an orange slice with his thumb. "That is true. No, it is a way to make me sound absent. You are sensitive because you are tired. I am tired because I am here." Dad set the orange down. Dad said Cole had a family to support and that people respected his sacrifice. I waited for the rest. He did not say it. "What am I sacrificing?" I asked. His eyes shifted toward the calendar. "You chose nursing. You like taking care of people." That sentence stayed with me. I did like helping people. I had built a career around it. Dad had turned that skill into evidence that the cost did not count. I took the respite brochure from my pocket. It had been folded so long that the creases were soft. "We need more paid help." I said no. "Then Cole needs fixed shifts. He comes. Not enough. You are trying to make him look bad." "I am trying to sleep in my own bed." Dad pushed back from the table. His cane scraped the floor. "This family does not abandon its own." I almost laughed. I was standing in his kitchen after another unpaid shift, and he was warning me about abandonment. Instead, I said, "Then let us write a real schedule." I called Cole that night and asked him to cover Tuesday evenings and Saturdays. He complained about work, the boys, and the risk of Dad falling. I reminded him that I also had a job and had already used most of my leave during rehab. "You know this stuff better," he said. That was how he made the imbalance sound practical. I would handle medications, transfers, and emergencies because I had training. He would make dinner and help Dad get ready for bed because those tasks required only time. When I said I could not keep losing work either, Cole reminded me that I had paid leave. "I used it during rehab. That was your choice." The words exposed the family rule. My time was a choice. His time was an expense. We agreed on the shifts, and I wrote his name on the calendar. I texted the schedule to both men so no one could later claim confusion. The first Tuesday, Cole arrived late. The next week, he dropped off takeout and left before Dad got ready for bed. On the third Tuesday, he never came. Dad called after 9. He had not eaten and could not remember whether he had taken his evening pills. When I arrived, the organizer was untouched. A pan of canned chili sat over a low flame, burned black at the bottom, while Dad slept in his chair. I shut off the stove and opened a window. Dad insisted he had only closed his eyes. He wanted the danger treated as a harmless mistake because no one had been hurt. I made him a sandwich, photographed the stove, and sent the image to our group text. Cole answered the next morning with 2 words. "My bad." Then he added, "Long day." Dad told me to delete the picture because it made the night look worse than it was. I told him the picture showed exactly what happened. "You enjoy being right," he said. That hurt because part of me did like plans, order, and knowing what to do, and Dad used that truth to dismiss a larger one. Being right did not mean I wanted the emergency. That Saturday, Cole missed again. I had promised to attend a friend's daughter's graduation, and I refused to go. Dad called as I was putting on my earrings. He rejected Patris, the bedside commode, and every safe option I offered. "I never thought I would hear my daughter say that," he said. I made it to my car before guilt took over. When I reached Dad's house, he was watching baseball. "You came," he said. His smile told me everything. That was my second mistake. I taught him that guilt worked. The graduation ended without me. I blamed work because it was easier than explaining my family. Then the church newsletter arrived. Dad's church mailed paper newsletters to older members. His copy sat open beside the calendar. A photo of Cole and Dad filled the bottom half of the page. It was the same photo from rehab. Cole had one arm around Dad's shoulders. Both were smiling. The caption called Cole a devoted son who had stepped away from his business to provide daily care after his father's stroke. It said the congregation was collecting gas cards and meal cards to support his family. My name appeared once. My single line reduced me to an occasional visitor. It blamed my nursing schedule for every absence. I read it twice. I carried the newsletter to Dad and asked who had supplied the story. He admitted talking to Pastor Neil, but he kept calling the description accurate because Cole helped. I listed the mornings, nights, appointments, and payments for Patris. Dad stopped his ankle exercises long enough to ask one question. "Do you want a medal?" "No, I want the truth." He said Cole's business had suffered and that the church was supporting a provider. I reminded him that Cole had missed care shifts to take roofing jobs. Dad stood too fast and his cane tipped. When I caught his elbow, he pulled away as if my hand were part of the accusation. He said I always needed people to see that he depended on me, and I said the church was giving Cole money under a false story. Dad called me jealous. The word was old and useful. It placed the problem inside me where he did not have to fix it. I asked him to correct the newsletter. He refused because he would not humiliate Cole. "What about me?" "You will survive." That was Dad's faith in me, not comfort, survival. I left before anger made the conversation uglier. That night, I opened our group text. I typed a clear message. Cole had not provided daily care. The church story was false. The collection needed to stop. I asked him to call Pastor Neil. Cole replied 10 minutes later. Dad asked them to help, not me. I wrote back, "You know why they are helping." He answered, "Why do you care who gets credit?" I stared at the yellow light from my phone. Credit had become money. The lie made me easier to use, and every person who praised Cole gave Dad another reason to deny what was happening. I sent one sentence. "I care because the work is real." Cole did not answer. The next morning, Marcy arrived while I filled Dad's pill organizer. She carried a casserole and 2 gas cards for Cole. She glanced at the yellow calendar, and my initials covered the week. "Were you here last night?" she asked. "Yes." "And this morning?" "Yes." Marcy kept the cards in her hand. "I think I will return these to the church." Dad ordered her out. Then he accused me of turning the calendar into a weapon. It held no opinions, only dates, tasks, and initials. "That is why you hate it," I said. He dropped it face down on the counter and told me to take my scorecard home. The paper bent across the middle. I smoothed the crease and hung it back on the wall. "No, it stays where the care happens." The church stopped collecting cards, but the story survived. People still praised Cole at the hardware store. He accepted every word. Meanwhile, Dad grew stronger and the care changed shape. He wanted rides, bills sorted, meals prepared, and phone calls handled. Each request was reasonable alone. Together, they filled my life. Cole kept missing shifts. Dad excused him before he even called. One evening, I asked for a free weekend. "You get evenings," Dad said. "I spend them here." "You are not married." He looked surprised by his own words. He did not apologize, and I went home without washing his dishes. It was the first boundary I kept. The fall happened in July. The fall happened in July. Cole was scheduled for Saturday. I had checked twice. He confirmed that morning. At noon, I turned off my phone during a movie. It was the first movie I had seen in a theater since Dad's stroke. I bought popcorn. I sat near the back. For almost an hour, no one needed me. When I turned my phone on, I had 6 missed calls. 4 were from Marcy, 1 was from Dad, 1 was from the hospital. I called the hospital first. Dad had fallen in the bathroom. Marcy heard him pounding on the wall through an open window, called paramedics, and used the spare key I had given her without waiting for permission. Cole had never arrived. I drove to the emergency room with popcorn salt still on my sweater. Dad had a bruised hip and a cut above one eyebrow. Nothing was broken, yet the sight of him under a white blanket made fear reach me before anger. He dismissed the fall and complained that Marcy liked drama. I reminded him that he had spent 40 minutes on the floor and could not stand. A nurse entered with the discharge papers. She smiled at Dad and said, "You are lucky your son found you." Dad stared at the blanket. The nurse added that Cole had told the paramedics he checked on Dad every Saturday. Cole appeared in the doorway behind me with coffee and said he had come as soon as he heard. I corrected the story. Marcy had found Dad. Cole admitted that, but claimed Dad had been confused and did not want to explain why a neighbor was in his bathroom. Dad said Marcy had no business being there. I reminded him that she had saved him, and Cole tried to move the conversation toward discharge. I asked where he had been. A customer had an active roof leak, he said. He had forgotten to call. Dad ended the argument with the same defense he always used. Cole came, after the ambulance. He came. The words were not about time, they were about rank. I said Dad needed overnight help for the next week. He refused. When I suggested Cole stay, my brother looked at the floor. Dad saw his face and quickly announced that no one needed to stay. Something inside me changed. It did not break. It settled. I stepped into the hallway and asked for the case manager. She explained that Dad could refuse help if he understood the risks. That did not mean I had to replace the help he rejected. I asked her to document the missed shift and Marcy's rescue, and Cole found me near the vending machines and accused me of making the problem official. Dad had fallen because Cole did not show up. That was already official. Cole said old people fell and accused me of acting superior because I was a nurse. I told him my training only made the next danger easier to see. He said Dad wanted family, not strangers. "Dad wants me," I said. "He only credits you." Cole had no answer. At home, I made 3 changes. I stopped paying Patris from my own account. I sent Dad the invoice. I told Cole that missed shifts would be recorded in the family text. I also asked Marcy to keep the spare key. Dad hated all 3. "You are punishing me for falling," he said. "I am changing a plan that failed. You are punishing Cole. I am documenting him. Same thing. No, it only feels the same when the truth is bad." Dad did not speak to me for 2 days. On the 3rd day, he called because the pharmacy had not delivered a refill. I handled it. I wish I could say I had learned my lesson. I had learned only part of it. I stopped hiding some consequences. I still made myself available for every medical problem. Dad used that opening. In August, he canceled Patris. I found out when I arrived on a Monday morning. Patris's name had been crossed off the calendar, and Cole's name covered every weekday in thick red marker as if the decision were already final. Dad said he had ended the paid aid because she cost too much. When I asked whether Cole had agreed to replace her, Dad called it family business. I phoned Cole from the kitchen. He admitted that Dad had found a county program that paid family caregivers, and the payment was just under $2,000 a month. I asked what hours he had promised. Cole ended the call. Dad had enrolled him as the weekday caregiver because Cole needed the money. I pointed out that Dad needed the care. Dad insisted the paid arrangement would make Cole reliable because it gave the week structure. The yellow calendar already held a structure. My initials filled it. Dad said the program made Cole's role official. That word hurt more than I expected. Months of my work had become ordinary, while a payment attached to Cole's name made his care real overnight in the eyes of everyone around us. The assessment had happened while I was working. Dad refused to tell me what he had reported, and he dismissed the calendar as a piece of paper rather than evidence that could be ignored. I told him he had every right to choose the program and choose Cole. He did not have the right to keep using my labor under Cole's name. Dad accused me of leaving him without care. I reminded him that Cole was now the paid caregiver. That was when he understood what he had arranged. His voice softened. Cole could not handle the medical pieces, he said, and surely I could continue doing those outside the paid hours. He called me his daughter and called Cole a man with bills. So do I. Dad struck the newspaper against the counter and accused me of turning everything into a question of fairness once again. No, you made my care into his paycheck. I left before he could ask me to stay. For 3 mornings, I stayed away and called each evening. Cole posted one grocery photo online, but the porch camera showed the truth. He had written his initials across the week. He arrived once and stayed 22 minutes. I called Dad. Did Cole help you Monday or Tuesday? He was managing things. Did he come? Dad accused me of spying. I am checking the schedule you asked me to trust. His voice dropped. Do not ruin this for your brother. That was the truth beneath everything. He was not afraid of losing care. He was afraid Cole would lose money. I asked whether he had submitted the missing hours. Dad called the forms complicated and ended the call. That evening, I found cereal on the counter, missed pills, and untouched exercises. I fixed the medication and made soup. That was my 3rd mistake, and I protected his health and the lie at the same time. That evening, I drove over. Dad had eaten cereal for dinner. His exercise sheet was untouched. The pill organizer showed that he had missed the noon dose on 2 days. I fixed the medication. Then I made soup. That was my 3rd mistake. I told myself I was protecting his health, not the lie. In practice, I did both. While the soup heated, Dad placed a folder on the table. The cover read Family Caregiver Service Plan. My name appeared inside. I was listed as the registered nurse who would train and supervise Cole. I had never agreed to that. I read the page again. It named me as the registered nurse responsible for medication education, transfer training, monthly review, and verification of Cole's competence. Dad admitted giving the program my professional information. He acted as if being his daughter and being a nurse made my consent automatic. I reminded him that I had shown Cole how to lock a walker once. I had not delivered the training listed on the form. Dad opened the folder to the signature page and asked me to sign. When I pointed out that the form claimed the training had already happened, he told me to change the date as if accuracy could be repaired with a pen. He seemed annoyed, not ashamed. That frightened me. I asked whether Cole had already submitted paid hours, and Dad called the program new and complicated, then admitted that Cole needed the first payment. He did not work those hours. You worked them. The room went quiet. Dad had finally said the hidden part aloud. He did not believe anyone was taking something from me because I did not need the payment. In his mind, the hours could move to the child who needed them more. I told him my work could not be moved under Cole's name. He told me to stop pretending I cared if I would not help the family. I called the form false. Dad told me not to use that kind of word in his house. What word would you prefer? Family. I refused to sign. Dad said I was risking Cole's business over one signature. I reminded him that he was risking my license. He dismissed the program as a county office, as though local paperwork were imaginary. Then he looked toward the yellow calendar and told me to take it down. I refused. It remained on the wall between us, and I drove home with the folder's language fixed in my mind. Monthly review, verification, supervision, those were not family favors. They were professional acts. I should have called the program the next morning. I did not. That was my biggest mistake. I told myself I needed more information. I told myself Dad might withdraw the form. I told myself a report could cost Cole the payment and leave Dad without help. The truth was simpler. I was afraid of becoming the daughter Dad already described. Absent, difficult, jealous, so I waited. For 2 weeks, I delayed calling the program. I limited my visits, but I kept handling medications and one appointment. Cole showed up more often, though never for all the hours. He wrote his initials into the calendar before each week began. Dad added tasks later. I kept brief notes in my purse. Recording my own father felt like betrayal, but nurses document because memory changes under pressure. During those 2 weeks, I tried to visit once without my nursing bag. I brought coffee and an old photo envelope from Mom's dresser. I wanted 1 hour that felt like a daughter sitting with her father. Dad asked about his blood pressure before I took off my coat. Then he pointed to laundry in the basement and a bill he wanted me to dispute. When I reminded him that Cole's paid hours covered household support, he said my brother was busy catching up after the spring storms. I carried the laundry downstairs anyway. While folding towels, I saw what I was doing. I had come to prove that our relationship could exist outside care, then accepted a list of tasks before the coffee cooled. I left the basket unfinished and returned to the kitchen. Dad had opened the photo envelope. One picture showed Mom at our old dining table with a birthday cake in front of her, and she was smiling, but her apron was still on. Even at her own celebration, she looked ready to get up and serve everyone. Dad traced the edge of that photograph. He said she had always known what family needed. I wondered how often praise had hidden the same bargain for her. Being needed had sounded like honor until the work became invisible. I told Dad the laundry could wait for Cole or Rosa. He accused me of bringing rules into a simple visit. The visit was not simple. That was the point. I took the photo of Mom home with me. Not as evidence, as a warning. Then Dad's birthday arrived. He turned 69 in September. Cole planned a cookout in Dad's backyard. I brought potato salad and a new pair of walking shoes. Dad had asked for the shoes. Cole gave him a gas grill that Dad had paid for, and the family praised Cole for choosing it. I watched him accept that too. About 20 people came to Dad's birthday cookout. Cousins, neighbors, church friends, and Cole's family filled the yard. Dad moved between the folding chairs with his cane and looked stronger than he had in months. I was proud of that progress, even while knowing who had carried most of it. Pastor Neil asked everyone to gather. He handed Cole a framed certificate for faithful service to his father. Cole lowered his head with practiced embarrassment while his wife recorded the moment. Dad raised a paper cup and praised the son who had put his own life aside. He said Cole had handled the hard parts and brought him back to his feet, then he reduced my part to one familiar sentence. Lena is busy with her patients. She comes when she can. The phrase had returned dressed as gratitude. Marcy whispered that I should correct him. I chose silence. I did not want to ruin Dad's birthday by listing showers, pills, and missed sleep in front of his friends. I carried my untouched potato salad into the kitchen. The calendar showed my initials for that morning. I had helped Dad shower, dress, and tie the new walking shoes I bought him. Cole had arrived with the guests. Dad followed me inside and said I could try being happy for my brother. I asked what exactly I was supposed to celebrate. He said Cole had sacrificed more because he had more to lose. I looked at the shoes I had tied and named what my father never counted. I had missed a promotion interview, used my leave, paid Patris, and spent more nights in that house than Cole had spent hours. Dad said I always brought tension. That was when I understood the lie was not an oversight. He needed me hidden. If people saw my care, they would see Cole's absence, and the devoted son story would collapse. I picked up my purse, and Dad reminded me that we had not cut the cake. Cole can handle it. He called my departure punishment and said I always left when I did not get my way. I stopped at the back door. I leave when staying requires me to disappear. Then I went home. The next morning, 3 relatives texted me. One asked why I had stormed out. Another said Dad deserved peace. A cousin sent a long message about sibling jealousy. Cole sent only a photo of the certificate. Under it, he wrote, "You made Dad feel guilty on his birthday." I did not answer. Instead, I called the county aging office. The receptionist transferred me to a coordinator named Bate Carter. I told her my name had been placed on a service plan without my consent. I said I had not trained or supervised the listed caregiver. Bate became very careful. Bate asked whether I had signed any part of the packet, supplied my license number, or agreed to supervise Cole. My answers were no, no, and no. Then she asked whether I was still delivering unpaid care. I admitted that I was. When Bate asked how much, I looked at the yellow calendar hanging in my memory. More than the paid caregiver. She requested a written statement and placed the claim under review. The word review made my chest tight. I asked what would happen to Dad's care. Bate said services would continue while the plan was verified, but the outcome would depend on what proved accurate. I knew what was accurate. I still felt like I had pushed him toward a cliff. I knew what was accurate. I still felt like I had pushed him toward a cliff. Dad called before lunch and accused me of reporting my own family. I told him I had corrected professional information that was used without my consent. He said Cole's payment had been frozen and the county was treating my brother like a criminal. I reminded him that accurate hours could still be submitted. Dad kept turning the issue into loyalty. He said I had told the county that Cole did nothing, even though I had reported only what I knew. When fear entered his voice, I almost backed down, then he chose the sentence he knew would hurt most. "Your mother would be ashamed of you." I sat at my desk until the wall clock blurred. Mom had spent her last months apologizing for needing help. I had bathed her, changed dressings, and slept beside her hospital bed. Dad had thanked me then, but he had also accepted every task as if daughters came with hidden reserves. Would she have been ashamed? No. Grief did not answer with logic, so I cried in a locked bathroom stall. Then I washed my face and returned to work. That evening, my access to Dad's patient portal stopped working. I thought the password had expired. The clinic told me Dad had removed my authorization and added Cole. I called Dad after learning that he had removed me from the medical portal and added Cole. I warned him that Cole did not know the current medication list. Dad said his son could learn. I accepted the decision without arguing, which unsettled him more than a fight would have. I emailed Cole the updated list, the pharmacy number, the therapy schedule, and the warning signs that required emergency care. The next morning, Dad called before sunrise. He felt lightheaded and his heart was racing. He wanted me to come over. "Call 911. He complained that I was being dramatic. I told him I could not safely assess those symptoms by phone. When he ended the call, I contacted emergency services and drove to his house. Paramedics were already there. Dad's blood pressure was low. His pulse was fast. On the counter, I saw his pill organizer. 2 compartments were empty that should not have been. "Who filled this?" I asked. Dad looked away. Cole had moved pills from their labeled bottles into the organizer. He had placed an evening blood pressure pill in the morning slot and doubled another dose. It was not malicious. It was careless, and carelessness can still put someone in an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor adjusted Dad's medication and kept him for observation. Cole arrived after sunrise. He looked terrified. "I followed the list," he said. "You used an old list. It was in the drawer." I emailed the current one. I did not see the attachment. Dad watched us from the bed. I wanted to say I told you so. I wanted to take back every task. I wanted to make myself essential again because fear had made that role feel safe. Instead, I asked the hospital pharmacist to teach Cole the medication system. Cole sat through the lesson. He took notes. For one day, he acted like a caregiver. Dad thanked him. He did not thank me for calling the ambulance. I noticed. This time, I did not pretend not to. Bate called while Dad was still in observation. Bate said the review had uncovered a second problem. The training verification carried an electronic signature under my name and listed my license number. My hands went cold. I told her I had signed nothing and had never supplied the number for that plan. The license itself was public, so the source mattered less than the way it had been used. Bate read the statement attached to my name. It claimed I had watched Cole complete safe transfers, medication assistance, and personal care training. I told her I had observed none of it. She requested that denial in writing and scheduled a formal interview for the following Thursday. Through the hospital window, I could see Dad laughing at something Cole had said. Then Bate asked directly whether I believed my signature had been copied. Yes. The answer came without hesitation. That was the first time I stopped protecting the story. That night, I spread copies of the calendar, the porch log, and the service plan across my dining table until the wood disappeared. I checked each date against my work schedule, not because I doubted the truth, but because Dad had trained me to doubt my right to name it. The strongest proof was not any single missed visit. It was the steady pattern of my work appearing wherever Cole's paid hours failed. I also wrote down what I wanted from the review, because anger alone could have turned a clear boundary into another family argument. I wanted Dad safe, my license protected, the false hours corrected, and my unpaid care removed from every plan that treated it as automatic. Dad came home the next afternoon. The hospital required a new medication plan and daily check-ins for a week. Bate arranged temporary visits through the county while the caregiver claim was reviewed. Dad called the aide the investigator. Her name was Rosa. She was calm, strong, and unimpressed by complaints, and Dad liked her by the third visit and refused to admit it. Cole stopped answering my messages. I submitted my statement to Bate. I attached the service plan, the group texts, and the porch activity from the claimed hours. I also described the medication error and the missed shift before Dad's fall. Then I drove to Dad's house for the first time since the hospital. He was waiting at the kitchen table. The yellow calendar lay in front of him. A black folder sat beside it. The moment I had feared had arrived. Dad pushed the caregiver form toward me. He tapped the line marked for a nurse's signature. "Just sign it, Lena. Cole did the work." 3 days earlier, he had praised Cole at church again. He had told a prayer group that I had reported the family because I was angry about the birthday award. I looked at the form. It was a corrected verification page. Someone had removed the electronic signature Bate questioned. The line was blank now. "If I sign this, the frozen payment is released?" I asked. Dad nodded. "And the review ends." That is what Cole was told. "Did he tell you to ask me?" "He is outside." I glanced toward the driveway. Cole's truck sat near the curb. "Why is he not in here?" "Because you make him feel like a criminal." "He used my name. He made a mistake." He claimed work he did not do. Dad's hand flattened on the calendar. "He did enough." Enough for what? To deserve help. I studied my father's face. That was the center of it. Cole deserved help because Dad had decided he did, and once Dad reached that conclusion, every fact became movable. Hours could move. Credit could move. My signature could move. My work could move. What happens to me if I sign a false verification? Nothing. You do not know that. You are always so afraid of rules. I am afraid of becoming someone I cannot trust. Dad looked away. I opened the yellow calendar. The first pages held the weeks after rehab. My initials crowded the squares. Patris had signed her visits in green. Cole's marks appeared rarely. Later pages showed Cole's initials written before the care occurred. My small corrections sat beside them. Missed shift, pills untouched, ride canceled, Marcy called, Dad reached to close it. I held the page. You told people this calendar was a scorecard. It is. No, it is the part of your life you wanted from me and the part you wanted everyone else to credit to Cole. You got to feel important. I felt exhausted. You chose to help. Yes. Then why are you billing us emotionally now? I am not asking for money. You want praise. I want you to stop lying. Dad stood with both hands on the table. You think care makes you righteous. No, care made me tired. Your lies made me angry. Cole entered through the back door. He did not remove his work boots. Can we get this over with? He asked. Dad pointed to the form. She is refusing. Cole looked at me. It is one signature. It says I trained and supervised you. You showed me the meds. After you doubled a dose. His face flushed. That was an old list. It was your job to use the current one. I am not a nurse. Then stop asking me to certify that you were trained like one. Dad struck the table with his palm. Enough! The yellow calendar jumped. He turned to me. Your brother has a mortgage. He has 2 boys. This payment keeps his business from folding. And what keeps your care from folding? We have you. The answer was immediate. Cole looked at Dad. Even he heard it. Dad had paid Cole because he expected me to remain the safety net. The program was not replacing my work. It was monetizing it for someone else. I slid the form back. No. Dad's face went still. You will regret doing this to family. I already regret what I let family do to me. I picked up the calendar. Dad grabbed one corner. That stays here. You told me to take it home. That was before. Before it became evidence. His fingers loosened. I folded the calendar along its center crease. The old bend from the day he had dropped it returned. Cole stepped aside as I walked out. He did not defend me. He also did not ask me to sign again. The formal review happened Thursday at the county aging office. Bates sat at one end of a small conference table, and a program supervisor joined by video. Dad sat across from me. Cole took the chair beside him. The yellow calendar rested on my lap. Bates began by explaining the rule that mattered. The program could pay a qualified relative for documented care. It could not pay one person for hours completed by someone else, and no professional verification could be submitted without consent. Dad interrupted to say Cole had managed the care. Bates answered that the program paid for delivered services, not general concern or family oversight. She asked Cole to describe a normal weekday visit. He listed breakfast, exercises, bathing support, medication reminders, and a walk. His answer sounded like the service plan because that was where he had learned it. Bates asked what time he usually arrived and what Dad ate, and Cole said he came around 7 and made eggs. Dad had hated eggs since Mom died. The smell reminded him of the hospital cafeteria where we spent her last week. Bates moved to the exercises. Cole could not name them. When the supervisor asked about transfer training, he said I had taught him at the hospital. I opened the calendar and stated that Cole had not attended discharge training. Bates asked to see the pages. The bright yellow cover looked almost childish under the fluorescent lights, yet the months inside were exact. My narrow initials filled the medical appointments and missed shifts. Patriss's green loops marked her visits. Dad's heavy writing dented the paper. Cole's red initials grew larger after the payments began. Bates compared those pages with the submitted timesheets. Several claimed mornings showed my initials and a missed shift note. The porch record showed no visit. The day of Dad's bathroom fall included paid safety supervision even though Marcy had found him alone. Cole said a camera could miss things. I reminded him that it recorded every other visitor, and he accused me of trying to bury him. I told him I was describing the places where he had not been. Dad dismissed the calendar as something I had created because I liked control. Bates asked whether the appointments and medication entries were accurate. He admitted they were. Then she asked whether I had performed the care beside my initials. Dad looked at Cole. My brother gave him one low warning. Dad. For a moment, I saw the frightened man from the hospital. He had lost strength, privacy, and the belief that he would never need anyone. Cole's public devotion let him feel like a father whose son had risen to the moment. My care reminded him that his daughter had seen every weakness. I understood the shame. I did not excuse the lie. "Yes," Dad said, "she did those things." Bate asked whether Cole had completed every paid hour. Dad admitted that he had not, though he tried to claim he could not remember the details. The supervisor reminded him that he had signed the time sheets. Dad said he had trusted Cole. Cole stood and accused Dad of filling out the hours. Their argument came fast. Cole said Dad had promised easy money. Dad said Cole had promised daily care. Cole said the program had been Dad's idea. Dad said Cole had searched for it. For the first time, their shared story stopped protecting either of them. Bate asked both men to sit. Dad did, but he did not surrender the plan. He opened his folder and removed the corrected verification page. He placed it in front of me. "You could end this." The line for my signature was still blank. Dad asked me to certify that Cole had received the required training and promised the schedule would be accurate from then on. Bate said nothing. She did not need to. I thought about the graduation I missed, the burned chili, the bathroom floor, the doubled pills, and the birthday certificate. I thought about every time Dad had called my care natural and Cole's care sacrifice. Then I looked at him. "You did not forget who cared for you," I said. "You erased me so you could pay him for my work." Dad flinched. I pushed the form back. "I will not sign." The refusal was quiet. No one applauded, and nothing shattered. The blank line stayed blank. For the first time, my father could not fill it with my obedience. Bate ended the review, and Cole was removed as the paid caregiver. The county opened an overpayment review for unsupported hours. My name and license number were removed from the service plan, and the electronic signature issue went to the compliance office. Dad remained eligible for care. That mattered. The county offered him a contracted aid for weekday mornings and transportation to therapy. He could accept the plan or arrange another safe option. I was not listed as backup staff. Dad stared at the new plan and asked what would happen if an aide failed to arrive. Bate gave him the agency number, the after-hours line, and the emergency procedure. Then Dad looked at me. I kept my hands in my lap. He signed the accurate plan. Outside the building, Cole walked toward his truck without speaking to me. Dad stopped beside my car. "You got what you wanted." "No, you wanted Cole punished." "I wanted my name removed from a lie." "Same result." "No, the result is that your paid caregiver must provide care." Dad looked older than he had that morning. "What am I supposed to tell people?" "The truth," he laughed once without humor. "You think truth fixes everything. No, it only tells us what needs fixing." I put the calendar in my back seat. Dad watched me close the door. "Are you done with me?" he asked. The question was so naked that it hurt. "I am done being your unpaid nurse." His face tightened. I told him I was still his daughter. I would visit on Sundays and share dinner with him. I would drive him to one planned appointment each month. I would not cover Cole's shifts, manage Dad's medications, or serve as the default emergency plan. He looked at the ground. "That does not sound like family. It is the family I can remain in." Dad did not answer. For the first month, he tested every boundary. He called during Rosa's visits and asked me to explain what she was doing. I told him to ask Rosa. He called when transportation was 5 minutes late. I gave him the dispatch number. He called because he wanted soup. I told him the grocery store delivered, and each refusal felt cruel for about 10 minutes. Then it felt like air. Rosa became his regular aide. She made him do the exercises he skipped with me. She let him complain without changing the plan. He respected her because she left at the end of her shift. Cole entered a repayment agreement for the unsupported caregiver payments. The amount was painful, but it did not destroy his family. He sold the extra truck Dad had helped repair. He also stopped calling himself Dad's caregiver. The church certificate disappeared from Dad's living room. I never asked where it went. Marcy told Pastor Neil what she had witnessed. He called me and apologized for the newsletter, and I asked him not to print a correction with my name. I do not need a new hero story, I said. He understood. The church redirected its help toward rides and meals for any older member recovering alone. No family member received gift cards for unverified work. That change meant more to me than a public apology. At work, Nina told me another clinical educator position had opened. The old instinct rose first. Dad had appointments. Dad might need help. Dad might be upset if my schedule changed. Then I remembered the blank line. I applied. During the interview, Nina asked how I handled conflict between compassion and professional boundaries. I almost laughed. Late, I said, but thoroughly. I got the job. 6 weeks after the review, Dad asked me to Sunday dinner. Rosa had helped him prepare meatloaf. He had set the table himself. The yellow calendar was no longer on the wall. In its place hung a small whiteboard with Rosa's schedule, the ride number, and Dad's therapy days. The system did not depend on me. We ate quietly. After dinner, Dad handed me an envelope. Inside was a page torn from the old church newsletter. He had crossed out the line about me visiting when my schedule allowed. Below it, he had written a sentence. I made you invisible because I was ashamed to need you. It was not a full apology. It did not mention the money, the signature, or the things he had said about Mom, and the old version of me would have completed it for him. I did not. I believe this part, I said. Dad nodded. I do not know how to fix the rest. You start by not asking me to pretend it did not happen. He looked toward the whiteboard. Rosa says I apologize like I am negotiating a used car. She is observant. He smiled a little. Then he said, I am sorry I used your work to make Cole look like the son I wanted him to be. That was closer. I am sorry I let you. Dad looked at me. You did not make me do it. No. But I kept rescuing the arrangement after I knew it was wrong. We sat with that. No music swelled. No years of family habits vanished over meatloaf. But Dad cleared the plates without asking me to help. When he wobbled near the sink, he reached for his cane instead of my arm. That mattered too. Our relationship did not return to normal. Normal had required my exhaustion. We built something smaller. I visited. I did not monitor. Dad sometimes told people Rosa was strict and excellent. He said Cole helped with repairs. He said I came for dinner. The roles became accurate. Cole and I took longer. He avoided me for 3 months. Then he called when one of his boys needed stitches, and he did not ask for medical advice. He said he wanted me to know the boy was okay. Before hanging up, he said, Dad made it sound easy. What? The caregiver money. He said you would handle the hard parts. I know. I should have known better. Yes. He was quiet. I am sorry. I did not forgive him on the phone. I thanked him for saying it. That was enough for one call. The yellow calendar stayed in a drawer at my house. I did not frame it. I did not keep it as a trophy. Some pages still smelled faintly like Dad's kitchen. One corner held a coffee stain. The center crease never flattened. For months, I thought the calendar proved how much I had done. Later, I understood that it proved something else. Care without truth becomes a place where the most reliable person can disappear. Love does not require that. Family does not make false hours true. Need does not turn a daughter's license into a shared resource. Gratitude cannot be assigned to the person who needs it most. Dad received safe care. Cole faced the cost of his choices. My professional name became mine again, and the boundary was simple. I could love my father without being the system that allowed him to lie. And if you have ever been called absent while carrying everyone else, remember this. You do not have to prove your love by disappearing inside the work. Sometimes the kindest thing you can leave blank is the line beneath a lie.